It's time for Travel Thursday. And for those of you that have followed this show for a while, we started this segment every Thursday during the pandemic when we were all locked in our houses and dreaming of places to go, whether it's the Maldives or Sri Lanka or places within our own country, in fact, up north in Leh and Ladakh and maybe down south in Kerala. But this is a good opportunity to talk about places to visit because you do plan ahead and you spend quite a bit of money sometimes on your travel. And we bring in people who've gone to the most amazing places in the world to tell you a little bit about those places so that you can plan your own travel. Joining me to talk about a place right here in India is Ivana Perkovic, who's a travel vlogger, a public speaker, and international business consultant. She's also based here in India, and she travels much more widely than I do. Ivana has seen so many more places in India than I have. Ivana, Sakleshpur is the place that you chose for us today. What stands out about it?
Well, actually, Sakleshpur is the latest monsoon destination. It is the hill station that is actually the closest hill station to Begnaluru, which means that it's only accessible by road as of now. You can only reach it by car or by train. But the good news is that you can actually also take the beautiful Vista Dome train there, and your journey would begin even before you reach Sakleshpur. But there's a lot to see in Sakleshpur as well. One thing that I do have to mention, because it is such an upcoming destination and the language sometimes can be a little bit of a barrier, it is better to work with a travel agent. For that, actually, I would recommend Argent Tours and Travels and also Evoke X. But of course, you can always connect to India Tourism Bengaluru as well to get the best, to get the best experience because it is an upcoming destination.
You mentioned the Vista Dome train, which I think a lot of people that live in and around Bangalore, or in fact Mangalore as well, they talk about it and it's so fascinating.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience in the Vista Dome?
The Vista Dome train is absolutely amazing because when you enter the train, not only the walls are fully made of glass, so you get all of the vistas to soak in, but actually also the seats turn in 360 degrees. So you can sit like in a normal train, but you can also turn the chairs towards the glass walls and completely enjoy the vistas during your journey. It's absolutely amazing. But again, I have to make a small disclaimer here. I tried booking the Vista Dome myself for almost a year, and it's actually two compartments attached to the regular train, hence why it doesn't necessarily show up as a Vista Dome train. For that, like I mentioned, I would really recommend to work with a travel agent because it's just so much easier to book that way.
Fantastic. Okay, so assume we've made it to Sakleshpur. We've
Yeah.
sat in the lovely Vista Dome. We've soaked in everything that the Nilgiris have to offer. Um, what do you do when you get there?
So there are actually a lot of things to do in Sakleshpur. You would not expect that. But first of all, there is a railway tunnel where if you reach there before 9 a.m., there's actually spectacular scenery, which you would always expect from a hill station. Then there is Kaginahare Hill Station, where you can go for an off-roading adventure. So if you like a little bit more of dirt tracks and driving around in a jeep, then Kaginahara Hill Station is the place to go. Then, for the people who like to explore more history and architecture, you have Manjirabad Fort, which is a star-shaped octagonal fort which was built by Tipu Sultan. And then again, for nature lovers, you have Manjihali waterfalls, where you can actually stand underneath the waterfalls. Now, the final thing, which I think something really special about Sakleshpur is the Pandavar Guda. This is a hill where the Pandavas used to stay allegedly during their Mahabharata exile. And there is actually also a 1,000-year-old temple over there.
Wow, that sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, there's so much to do.
It is. There is indeed so much to do. But talk about the budget then, and talk about how
Yeah.
many days you would recommend, Ivana, that people spend there, because that's certainly something to plan, right? And what's the best time to go there?
The best time to go is actually right now, hence why I thought it would be the best place to recommend. First of all, it's an upcoming destination. So, if you want to impress your friends and family with a destination where, nobody has been yet, then Sakleshpur is really the place to be. As for the timing, it's an absolutely perfect place to go for a long weekend. So 2 or 3 days, maybe 2 or 3 nights. In terms of budget, obviously you can make it as expensive as you would like. Obviously, the road trip, and if you need to rent a car, that will cost you about 10,000 rupees. But then in terms of stay, you can make it, as basic or as luxurious as you want it to be. In terms of basic stays, there are plenty of homestays and resorts there in the budget category. So for instance, Eka Resort or Machan Resort would cost anywhere between 5,000 up to 10,000 rupees. And then you have the Kanana Resort, which is allegedly the best homestay in Sakleshpur. That one would cost only 5,500 rupees per night. Now, of course, if you want to make it more luxurious, there is the new Rosetta by Firms, quite famous and infamous here in Begnaluru. It's kind of a hidden treasure. Like most of Bangaloreans are really discovering it right now. That one now actually has also a great deal where you can get a room for 12,500 rupees, but that is including the meals per night. So, of course, in terms of budget, you can always make it as, as affordable or as expensive as you would like it.
That's certainly fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about the food and the people and the culture in Sakleshpur. I would assume that because it's Karnataka, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, yes. So one thing that makes Sakleshpur actually very special is that they do speak Kannada, but which is the local language of Karnataka, but it is with a local accent. So it actually sounds very different than the regular Kannada that you would hear here in Begnaluru. So when you go there, you actually feel like you're exploring a whole new culture and just being surrounded by a new language and a whole new environment. But then actually on your drive to Sakleshpur, there's one place that I absolutely have to recommend for food. It is Dhruvatara Hotel. Again, with Bangaloreans, very famous. I know people who actually plan their trips around this hotel for the food because it is absolutely phenomenal. I can tell you, after living for 4 years in Begnaluru, I know my idlis, I know my vadas. We can get really, really good idlis and vadas here. But the idlis and vadas and the coconut chutney at Dhruvatara Hotel, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. So you have to put that on your list, especially if you're going by car. Plan your trip around it. You have to taste that food. It's absolutely amazing. Then in terms of other Karnataka food, you have to try chitrana, which is one of my favorites. It is lemon rice. Something actually very basic for Karnatakas, but it is so delicious and I feel everybody should try that. Then you can also try akki roti, which is delicious with just a little bit of ghee. And then for the non-veg people, you have maldad chicken curry or mutton curry that you can try. And as you can hear, these are all just local foods. So in terms of budget, honestly, it will not be more than the regular double prices. I don't think you will pay anywhere more than, maybe 150 up to 250 rupees. Honestly, it's probably even less than that. I'm just mentioning a little bit higher budget so you can be surprised, very pleasantly surprised when you get to try it out.
Right? When you find, like, it's like when you find some money in your pocket that you didn't know
Pretty
about.
much, yeah.
In
terms of budget, like I like to quote the prices a little bit higher. So if it turns out to be a little bit lower, like people are actually more happy.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to know is, so for example, think about somebody who wants to plan a slightly longer trip. You mentioned it's a perfect place to go for a weekend. But would you suggest that then you can add Sakleshpur to a few other places that you can go to? And would you suggest which those places can be?
Alex, I really, really like your thinking. Yes, 100%. So Sakleshpur is actually on the way to Bangalore. And the trip that we did with Karnataka Tourism Forum and India Tourism Bengaluru, their Sakleshpur was actually a hill station in between where we just stayed overnight. enjoyed the beautiful monsoon rains, had our chai. It was absolutely amazing, especially when the weather here in Bengaluru was so hot. And I know up in North India, people are still melting under the hot summer temperatures. Here in Bengaluru, actually, it's quite nice. But if you are going to, for instance, if you're planning to go to Mangaluru or Udupi, then Sakleshpur is actually the perfect in-between stop where you can stay for maybe like even 1 or 2 nights and then resume your trip to Mangaluru or Udupi and actually get a whole road trip in Karnataka in your holiday.
Fantastic. And you've already spoken to us about Mangaluru, so we know.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan.
So am I. My wife is Mangalorean. But
Lucky
thank you,
you.
thank you so much for taking the time, Ivana. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and you help us dream. So thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me.